Hidely-ho, neighborinos!
Croeso and welcome to another exciting edition of Tales for Wales, the pod that never fails to get that little pitter-patter of grey matter going with a bit of history, a bit of Wales and some laughs along the way. I'm Jack, and as usual I'm joined by my friend, my confidant, my buddy, my pal, Franco Baby.
I appreciate that little peep show reference there at the start. You'll always win me over with a little peep show quote.
Oh mate, I said I'd wing it before we started recording, and then my mind just goes completely blank, and it just went, just claw it. Yeah. Peep show references are so ingrained in my.
I was going to say it's one of my.
It's just like
peep show references are like so. It's just my go-to. If your brain has like a screensaver, that's what mine is. Just peep show quotes.
Yeah,
just dossing around.
It's just the go-to at this point, isn't it? Yeah, your bread and butter.
Your bread butter, mate. Lovely bit of bread butter. How you been doing, you little rat bag?
I've been all right, mate. Not too bad. I've I was just. Oh, I told you earlier, wasn't I, that I've tried to adopt, take a leaf out of your book, and do the 10,000 steps a day, especially post honeymoon and download festival, to try and just shift a bit of timber. But it's a fucking long way, isn't it, to walk? Like, you don't realise that 10,000 steps is quite difficult to achieve. Yeah. Anyone who's listening who does it with ease, fucking, you need a hobby, man, because it's too much. And the other day I was about 2,000 off my limit, and I thought, oh fuck it, I'll just walk around the garden for a bit with my headphones in. But my garden isn't huge, like, it's fine, but I was just walking in circles, listened to music and whatever. But then I looked up, and my neighbour, who's he's got like a raised conservatory next door, so he can sort of, when he's in his conservatory, you can see over my fence and look into the garden. And I saw him like sort of looking as I was walking around. I hope to God he saw that I had my headphones on, because it's just, they're earphones, so they're quite small. And I thought, if he didn't see those, he just thought I was pacing around the garden. Like, I was thinking, how long has he been watching me? Because I was there for a good like 10-20 minutes. And I thought, if he's just watching me walking around the garden like a fucking lunatic, just head down, marching along in a circle. And I thought, fucking hell, what's he thinking? The only reason I knew he was there, because I heard him like shut the conservatory door. And I just had this image in my head that he'd been watching me for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I've had enough now. Slam. I'm off.
I used to, I walk up and down my flat, because I've only got a small flat, so I have to walk up and down the stairs to get my steps in, and it's fucking so tedious. 10,000 steps when you're like a bit tall fucking takes forever. I told you earlier, I left the house to go get the steps, and you look like a bit of a fucking wrong one, like walking around in circles for ages and travelling back on yourself. You just look like you're up to no good, and I usually am.
Yeah. You look like you're fucking staking a place out. You're like the little corner shop next to you. You're going to fucking rob it or something. They're watching you on the security cameras, just passing in the window.
Those little rotters. I just come back from Glastonbury as well, and I wore flip-flops on day one, and I did 32,000 steps, and I cannot explain the fucking agony my feet are in. They are battered. Jesus. They're like all lumps and bumps and horror dust all over. They're fucking awful.
Little hobbit feet in the making. That must be grim. I was hoping you'd come up with some things at Glastonbury, just for the listeners. Franco was texting me at one point, and I was saying, oh, come on then, give us some tales of Glasto. How's it going? And it was the most scathing review. It was like a sort of... It sounded like you wanted to say, I hate it, but you were holding yourself back. And it was such a like, oh yeah, no, it's, there's a couple of acts, they've been quite good, but on the flip side of things, I fucking hate everyone.
Yeah, I fucking hate
everyone was dead. And it was such a, Jesus, you obviously have hated every moment of this.
It's not for me. It was so fucking... so middle class. There was so many fucking middle class people there. To be fair, it's like 250,000 people and like 2 police officers. Like, it's really safe. And there's loads of people off their but I didn't do any drugs for the festival. Like, I went with my partner, and her friends are all pretty tame and lovely. So I wasn't on any drugs, which makes festivals hard. And no one else was really drinking. Like, if you go to, I used to do festivals back in the day, and you kind of need drugs to make it bearable, and that's kind of what they're for, aren't they? Like, ecstasy makes music really good.
I'm not big on the drugs front, but like, I wouldn't be able to go if I couldn't get hammered.
Yeah.
Like, I can't sleep in a tent if
No.
I'm not drunk. So
No.
you
So,
know,
like-
just for the comfort element, let alone
Yeah,
the
but you know,
enjoyment.
like that's what like people who might do recreational drugs every so often. Festivals are
Hmm.
kind of where you'd see them, and so there's loads of people off their face on drugs. And my partner's friends don't even really drink that much. So when I was getting drunk, at one point someone was like, "Oh, you're getting a bit drunk." I was like, "Oh, you don't want to be told you're getting a bit drunk." And they said it in a
the
nice
shame.
way. They said it in such a lovely way. But I was like, "Oh," then you just know that you're probably speaking louder or being a bit more like just blary. So it was a bit like, "Oh, my feet hurt."
You want to be around your usual lads with that, where they just bolster that effect.
Well,
where they just go,
yeah.
you think you're being loud? I'm just going to shout in your ear now.
But it was and then the music was fine. It was all fine, and I just feel like it's just so not my vibe. Like I can't hack.
It was
a
all
10.
fucking fine, all right? It was completely fucking fine.
But it's like mad expensive, like crazy expensive. We took booze in, which was fine. But I drank my bottle of rum in like a day, and then I was on beers the second day. I don't know. It was fine. It was absolute. But everyone around you fucking loves it. They think it's the best thing in the world, and everyone there like thinks they're always like, "Oh, this place is like," and I'm definitely the minority. Everyone loves it. Me and my partner were like, "This is absolutely fine." But when I was there, what was quite cool, being a part of like a crowd. So like Elton John, I think, was the biggest crowd they've ever had at Glastonbury, and they don't know
It looked
exactly
huge,
the
mate.
numbers.
I've seen some pictures, but
Well, they assume it was around 150,000 people were watching him, and I was stood in that, and it is crazy how many Welsh flags are there. Like, because Glastonbury's famous for its flags. They were just flags everywhere, and there were so many Welsh flags, and there was like a Owain Glyndŵr flag and like a Welsh
mate, when you
independence
sent
flag.
me that, I was buzzing. A literal, Owain Glyndŵr's like fucking coat of arms. I was like, not even just a Welsh flag, but like so niche.
Yeah.
Oh well, not niche for a Welsh person, but niche in terms of Glastonbury. Like, how many coats of arms of Owain Glyndŵr were there?
Yeah, it is bizarre, isn't it? And then when I was in this big crowd, because I was like fucking daydreaming, wishing I was anywhere else, I'd look up and I'd see a Welsh flag like maybe 500 feet ahead of me, and I was thinking, "Oh, this is what it'd be like in battle," like because I saw it and the proudness and like palch there, like the like, oh go on. I got so like emotive seeing it. I thought that's what you'd be like if you were in the midst of a battle and you saw your country's flag like 1,000 yards ahead of you. You'd be like, keep fighting for the flag. And then I was
Elton
like,
John playing in the background, like yeah.
it's gonna be a long hunter. I was like, I can do it. Cymru Rydd! So I was shouting into the sky. So yeah, everywhere I was going, the pod follows me. History follows. But it was fine. It was absolutely fine. Good luck to you.
It was completely fine, all right?
Good luck to the lads, that's what I say. They'll be all right there.
God bless them. Godspeed.
But all my partner's friends who were going, they left. I was quite glad that Emma didn't like it too much either. Like, it's just, like, we even paid for this tent to be put up for us through this, like, snooty little, it's private, they have a place called, like, Stinkfield or Stitch Lynch or something like that. And it's like a...
Stinkfield, that's got to be it, isn't it? Yeah.
I kept calling
Marketer's
it that.
dream, that, yeah.
And you're in this field that it's a part of Glastonbury, but you can pay for like a year or a 2-man tent to be put up for you, and it was £400 for a 2-man tent.
Fucking hell.
But you got your own showers and a proper toilet. My God, the toilets there. This is like hack comedy stuff, like what old comedians would like make fun of festival toilets. This was like a war crime. The stench was just unbelievable.
One night in Download, and this wasn't even we stayed off site in Download. It's like this hotel that does like they let you rent their camping in their like garden sort of thing, their property, whatever. Anyway, they got these like portaloo things, and one night the stench was so bad it had like attracted like I'm not kidding you, like a swarm of flies. They were buzzing around there. I'm not a big fan of bugs as it is, right? Well, I was trying to have a piss in one of the urinals. I was looking up, and it was, you just hear like above you, because they were just everywhere. It's as if they'd gone, this is our home now. This is ours. You have to leave now because it stinks so bad. You've attracted us.
I can, because they have these massive drops. They're called like drop shitters or something, where you just shit.
Long drops? They don't do long drops, surely.
Yeah, it's long drops. That's what they're called. And
they don't have real toilets.
No water, just long drops. So it just goes and then because it was so hot, the stench. It did feel like, especially when you walk down,
shitting in a hole.
You see a sea of tents, like hundreds of thousands of tents, and you think, oh, this does feel like a war camp, like we're about to go to. Then the smell is so so bad, like 100,000 more than that shitting in a fucking hole, and the everything was just abysmal. And then you get sawdust to throw it. And I heard someone say they thought the sawdust was for your ass, that you threw the sawdust.
You wiped your ass with the sawdust. Yeah. Oh god!
And, but then ours had like proper toilets, and I've never been happier. I just sat in this little shitter, just sat there thinking, this is heaven. I don't have to be around anybody else.
That long drop shit does sound bloody horrible, to be fair.
But if I was with like more like my kind of friends, it'd have been more easy because we'd all just be drunk the entire time.
And the shits would have been all the worse for it as well.
Yeah, true. Well, my partner, who didn't drink much at all, got really bad food poisoning on the way home, and there was massive queues for sushi. Who's queuing for sushi at a fucking 30 degrees festival?
That's asking for bloody trouble. Yeah.
That teaches the middle class to be fucking the hoi polloi. Just be like I did. I ate nothing but chips for 3 days straight, and my stomach was
chips
fine.
And burgers, man. I had a bowl of mac and cheese at one point in Download. It was fucking gorgeous, actually. But it did come out just not too far from a consistency it went in, to be honest. But.
Did we have a review to read? We normally have a little review.
I've got a review, of course we do. This is the new us now, isn't it? Reading reviews out at the start. So, this new review, to move swiftly on, is from, and I love this username, it's from Buff Daddy 91.
I'm a real Buff Daddy 91.
Sounds like a different version of like Shawn Michaels' intro music from I'm just a sexy boy. I'm just a buff daddy.
I'm just a real buff daddy. I like when they add names to stuff because it sounds like the Buff Daddy original has been taken. So they have to add their name.
Buff Daddy 91.
I'm a real buff daddy.
So Buff Daddy. He likes us. He gives 5 stars. Absolute boy.
Yeah.
Title of it: Easy Listen, and he says, easy listen and laughing all the way through. Presenters have a good rapport. Stop teasing me, Buff Daddy.
Stop teasing me, Buff Daddy.
Presenters have a good rapport and don't take themselves too seriously. Brightens up those dull commutes to work. Can't wait to hear more inaccurate Welsh facts about Welsh history. Cadwch boys bach.
Diolch yn fawr. Buff Daddy is here to pump me up.
Daddy. Buff Daddy, he reviews your podcast.
Buff Daddy makes me feel horny. Buff Daddy makes me feel horny.
Buff Daddy, 5-star cock.
Buff Daddy reviewing podcasts and cock all around the nation.
Well, Buff Daddy 91, I can only say a thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you very much for that lovely review.
You know, when we got a Buff Daddy on board, the pod's doing okay.
Watch our numbers fucking climb sky high now. We got Buff Daddy on side.
And for 2 men with actual daddy issues, it's a fucking godsend to have Buff Daddy there. He won't leave as well.
Wish I had Buff Daddy growing up.
Yeah, I wish Buff Daddy was around when we were young. Okay. Well, moving from one Buff Daddy to another Buff Daddy who I'm going to be talking about. Well, actually, that's tenuous. I'm going to be talking about a Buff Daddy who has a very... let me start again.
It's a buff daughter.
I'll keep that in. I'm trying to... I realise I re-listened to a few episodes and I always try and segue from our last bit of chat to the episode. So, from one Buff Daddy to one Buff Daddy who had a brave daughter. I don't know what I'll have to do.
Brave.
Brave daughter.
Brave daughter.
Brave daughter.
She's very brave, wasn't she?
Brave, actually. And I just want Britain to be about British. That's the voice I always do whenever I think of a racist. I just
want Britain to be about brave daughters, actually. Buff daddies, alright?
Well, this story, as you can tell from the title, it's about Gwenllian. And her full name, in history, they call her Gwenllian ferch Griffith. Not to be confused with Gwenllian ferch Llywelyn, who's another famous Gwenllian from history, but we're going to be covering Gwenllian ferch Griffith. So this story takes place during the Norman invasion of Wales, and after the naughty Normans had conquered England in 1066, they spent the next few decades ravaging Wales, They struggled more than they thought due to the terrain and the use of longbows and the Welsh hit and run tactics. We speak more about this in the Krieg Mawr episode, so do yourself a favour and learn more about the Normans' struggle in Wales and listen to that episode. But,
yeah, that's a goodie.
As this episode's title suggests, we're going to be focused on the female lead. Now, female commanders weren't uncommon in Celtic tradition. Last week we looked at Boudicca, who was a fierce Celtic chieftain who led a violent revolt against the invading Romans. And also in things like the laws of Humour, which were the laws that were still in place during the time of Gwenllian, they were a lot more liberal and progressive for women in Wales, much more so than the Saxon or Norman laws in England. We've said it before, but let's properly do a whole episode on his laws, because I was reading through them the other day, and some of them are worded quite funnily, and they're also interesting. So I think we should do a little episode where we read through his laws and see if they still hold up to today, or if anything, they're probably more progressive than that Tory government.
Bloody liberal lefty, all right?
Wokeism.
Rodri, the fucking Mao. What's his name? Rodri?
Humour.
Oh, that, Jesus Christ, sorry. Cut that.
Yeah.
Humour, the original Wokey.
We're not
Rodri Mawr, apparently. I know, I was going to say, apparently I've got a beef with Rodri Mawr in deep in my subconscious.
No, so let's do an episode on Humour. We'll line that up because I think that'll be interesting. So Humour is the first king of Wales to be properly codify things. He invented a lot of the laws that were around in the Middle Ages and Dark Ages.
And they stood the test of time, didn't they?
Yes,
They were a standard that a lot of Welsh people sort of held themselves to for a long time.
He followed what Alfred the Great did, and he wrote things down. And Humour means Howell the Great, pretty much. So he's kind of him and he's also friends with Alfred. So they did a similar thing. They wrote stuff down. They became laws were enshrined because of them. So even the Senedd today, the main hall of the Senedd is called Humour, like the Humour Hall or something like that. So it's named after him. It's our place of law today.
We've been saying we're going to do an episode on for fucking ages, haven't we? So we will have to just do it.
Let's do it.
We'll earmark it, mate. We'll earmark
Yes.
it.
Anyway, so we've established women in Wales weren't out of place on the battlefield, and they had a bit more rights than they did in other parts of the UK. So journey with me now through time and space, and let me tell you the tale of another Welsh heroine, Gwenllian. So in 1113, Griffith ap Rhys, who was king of Deheubarth, which as we all know by now is West Wales, he went off to meet Griffith ap Cynan, who was king of Gwynedd, which is North Wales. So this was a bit confusing, so stay with me, but I will repeat it. The father of Griffith ap Cynan, who is the king of the North, his father was supported by the father of Griffith ap Rhys, who was the king of West Wales, in his fight to become king of the North. So to clarify, we got two kings meeting up who had a connection because one of their king's dad helped the other king's dad become ruler of Gwynedd. So it'd be like if my dad helped Jack's dad set up a construction company, and then I go and visit Jack, and I say hi.
Fucking hell, where's this going?
And then we both say, "I wish Buff Daddy was here to help us."
I wish Buff Daddy could help us get through the fucking notes. Yeah.
Yes. So there we go. Does that make sense? Have I overcomplicated that?
I know it because in the Princes of Wales one,
you've talked about it.
I've sort of read about this before, so I know it.
Right, sorry. So we got King of Deheubarth, West Wales. He's going to visit the King of the North. It doesn't help the local fucking Griffiths. These two have a connection because they both have fathers who helped each other become rulers in their own right. So now, the King of Deheubarth from West Wales, he's not only a visitor, but also a visitor whose daddy helped establish the other king's dad as ruler. So they gave him a proper royal welcome.
My cousin Balin will give us a royal welcome.
So picture a lovely spread, finest crockery, the best ale, which I imagine is their version of whatever carling was in the 12th century. They had the best musicians, poets, jesters. Talking of carling, I'm going to have a friggin' big old gulp.
Glug, glug, glug.
So they had the best musicians, poets, jesters. They went all out for him because, this is a man whose family helped set up this kingdom of Gwynedd, or this king to be of Gwynedd. And this King of Gwynedd, he also brought his daughter there, the titular Gwenllian. Now, by all accounts, she was an absolute looker. Like everything in history says she's a stunner, which is a bit mad that they focus so much on
They've all corroborated it. There's not some jaded lover who's going, nah, fucking minging, mate.
She was a fucking dog. She's a dog or a rat spot.
She was
fucking gopping. But I do love her still, don't I? Oh, Buff Daddy, I don't love her still. So she's a beautiful lady, really, really fitting of the title of princess. So despite all the lavish spread the King of Gwynedd had put on, the only thing our horny little King of the Haybarth wanted to spread was Gwenllian's royal legs.
Oh, nicely done. Quite the writer, aren't we?
Yes, so Gwenllian and Griffith ap Cynan, the King of the Haybarth, they got on so well they spent the entire time in each other's company. Their chemistry was just magnetic, and they were both so effing horny they didn't even wait around for breakfast, and they ran off back to West Wales with zero permission, no dowries, not even a shake of the hand. Thanks for supper, now I'm off to get felched by your daughter. It was just they were gone.
Felch, Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Too much.
So now, this King of West Wales, this Griffith ap Cynan, you've actually told us about him before, haven't you? Like you mentioned, you've done a story on him in the Princes of Wales,
that's right. So we covered Griffith ap Cynan, and I bypassed Gwenllian purposely because I knew you had one in the pipeline. Yeah. Coming.
But as a quick recap, in this Griffith ap Cynan from West Wales. He's a king, but he wouldn't really stay at home. He's not your stay-at-home king. He wasn't one for growing fat on a throne. Instead, he had a modest army of men who would roam Wales, especially around his beloved West Wales, and he'd ambush, attack, and massacre the invading Normans who'd strayed away from their bigger armies. And also, that part of West Wales, like Swansea, like Carmarthen, had been really, really heavily attacked by the Normans. By that stage, they'd already taken over Cardiff and the south, and the Marshall.
Yeah, they had a stronghold down in Cardiff, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they operated out there a lot. And this Griffith ap Cynan? Sorry, I think we just talked about this, but is he the half Viking, half Celt?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? Yeah, that we talk about. We talk about in the Princes of Wales. I won't go into it. Yeah. But yeah, just to
you're right.
Clarity.
And that kind of matches his fighting style. He wasn't one for staying behind castle walls. He was a Viking in that sense. And so the Normans were now pushing further into Wales. And he's described as living a rough and combative nomadic lifestyle. And I picture them as the riders of Rohan in Lord of the Rings. You know when Eomer, the king's nephew, he gets exiled, he just roams the plains smashing into goblins and orcs with his loyal
killing all the orcs, yeah. Norman goblins. He was killing Norman goblins, yeah.
Yeah. So when... So this lifestyle was pretty new to Gwenllian, and it was really difficult. But she came into it quite young as well. She wouldn't have been older than 15 by the time they were here, which, dodge for getting married at that age, but that's kind of what life was like back then. Life expectancy was far lower as well, so, he's not a nonce, is what I'm trying to say.
At 15, you were probably about 30, weren't you, in medieval ages?
One tooth left in your gob.
Yeah. You probably stunk as well.
Yeah, I mean, we still have stinkers today, but more so back then, I imagine.
Yeah, some people haven't learned.
But anyway, so she joined this really difficult life, but she thrived, and she joined in this marauding army to defend Wales against the Normans. She did this for 20 years, and she's been described by many as fighting at the head of the troops, shoulder to shoulder with her love. They'd also distribute the loot they took from the Normans that they'd ambush and share that with the displaced Haybarth Welsh. So they're like a Celtic Bonnie and Clyde. And people often describe them as the real-life Robin Hood. They used to go around together, and they'd have their army, and anything they kept would be they'd travel back to their strongholds, and on the way home we'd
actually help their subjects,
and they'd fight fiercely. They'd fight at the front together, and then they'd venture back together. They also then began venturing further from home. They attacked the Normans. In this 20-year period, they attacked the Norman castles of Carmarthen, Llanymddyfri, Aberystwyth, and even Swansea, but they wouldn't hold the castles. Nice. Instead, they just opt to return to the woods. They'd attack these places, burn them to the ground sometimes, loot them, take all they could, kill all the Normans, and then they'd run away. They did this mostly...
absolute royal pains in the arse for the Normans, basically.
Yeah, quite literal royal pains. They did this mostly because they relied on that lightning strike style of attack, that quick, brutal, and devastating Welsh tactic. But also, it meant they avoided getting overwhelmed by larger numbers, so they could attack with a small amount of people, do damage, and then get out of there really fast. And
before any sort of
proper army came,
follow-up force would come down.
So there's one instance where there's a caravan of Normans going through West Wales, and it's a really large caravan. They jump out halfway through a forest, kick the living shit out of some normie, and then fuck off before the rest of them can come. So they act in fast, and then before the army can turn on itself and properly get ready, they've already scarpered.
It's a tale as old as time when it comes to Welsh warfare, mate. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, so things change in 1135 when Henry I dies, King of England, and then land disputes between the Norman barons breaks up and causes instability for the Normans. So then some top lad called Howell ap Meredydd of Brycheiniog, which is Breconshire, he won a crucial victory against the Normans of Gower at the Battle of Garngoch on the New Year's Day on 1136, which is a mad day for a dust-up. Like, it's
New Year's Day, I love that. First day on the New Year, I tell you what I want a fucking fight. Let's fucking get it done.
New Year, new me, I'm going to fucking have you.
And look, let's get the hard stuff done early doors, and then it's done then, isn't it? It's just done.
This is a really famous battle because it's a turning point where the Welsh beat the Normans in this. Like they kill a lot of them, but also for the ferocity and how vicious the fight was. It's always been described as like a truly horrendous battle. The people of Wales have been absolutely fucked by the Normans. Their rule was noticeably crueler than any other ruler the Welsh had seen before them. So even when there's been Vikings, but they never settled. There've been Saxons and stuff. There've been imposers from England. Even imposers from Wales. The Romans. This was noticeably crueler. The Normans ruled with a really they're famous for it. It's like what happens in Braveheart and happens from
I suppose they they were coming over to conquer the UK, and once they'd done England, it was like we don't want to fucking half-ass it, do they? They want to go in hard. But then when they make sure when they governed, subjugated as well.
Yeah, when they governed, they were the ones who changed like common land to being in charge. You had a king at the very top who had everything. And then he'd give his cut off to like the lords and stuff, and the lords then were given like impunity to rule with how they wanted in those areas, and a lot of the time it was fucking cruel. So when this battle happened, the Welsh saw it as their chance for fucking revenge. They didn't care if they were to die. It's a chance to like fuck it. This has gone on long enough. It's death or glory.
Yeah, and getting out a lot of angst. I imagine in that.
So apparently, according to the chronicles, the horses were said to have been up to their fetlocks in blood, which after googling it, it's past the hooves before the ankles. But there was so much blood from after the Normans had been killed and like they're massacred and mutilated, the blood went above the hoof of the horses as they were walking.
Fucking hell, so like a shallow pool of it all over the fucking battlefield.
And Gwenllian and Griffith saw this as their opportunity to strike a more devastating blow and to change tactics from their skirmishes. So Griffith, her husband, decided to take his oldest and youngest sons with him to see Gwenllian's dad, aka his father-in-law, who we mentioned at the start of this, in Aberfour. And his plan was there to try to persuade him now was the time to join and plan their attacks on a more wider scale, proper war. Also, as a side note, due to this lifestyle that Gwenllian and Griffith had, where they were always, in the thick of it and properly fighting, they would often split after a raid and run in opposite directions with different children. So if they were caught, they could attempt to rescue one another, or if they were killed, they wouldn't have the entire family wiped out. So often, say, the middle children would go with the dad. Move. Yeah, so, but it's also so cavalier and like it feels so romantic.
Yeah. Hey, look, if half the family dies, at least the other half are living. Yeah.
But I mean cavalier and like it's like such a romantic story of like Robin Hood or like Bonnie and Clyde, where hey we're just two adventurers. I don't know. It's something it feels very.
We're just a couple of kids in love, slaughtering the Normans, aren't we?
That romantic tale: boy meets girl, girl meets boy, girl
amasses an army against the Normans.
Launches
splits up after a battle just to make sure the kids don't die.
Launches a 20-year revolt against a Norman invasion and fights skirmishes and
it's your classic story.
So that was it. They'd always do that. So now, whilst Griffith was trying to convince the King of Gwynedd to support his war, the Norman barons, led by some jumped-up little prick called Maurice de Londres, began devastating raids across towns and villages into Haybarth. So this was in revenge for all the resistance Gwenllian and her husband had wielded. Most of the best fighters and best equipped soldiers had gone to escort Griffith. But Gwenllian knew she couldn't let the West fall to the Normans, and she couldn't leave the people of the Haybarth to their deaths. And also, most of the deaths were coming because of her revolt, and she was like, she didn't do all this to save her people, just to watch them die.
Yeah.
So she summoned the remaining captains, all of whom were equally loyal to her as they were her husband, and they marched to defend their homeland. So news reached them that this vast Norman army had now stationed near Kidwelly Castle, and as much as she had resisted open war on a battlefield, she knew she couldn't rely on her hit-and-run tactics here. So her modest army marched to Kidwelly, but again, a lot of the men had just fought in that big battle on New Year's Day, and they were quite exhausted. Like, they were either injured, so she didn't have the full strength in there. But whilst she was marching there, many local Carmarthenshire folk decided to join them, despite being completely ill-equipped and lack of training. But they were like, no, we believe in this woman.
Inspired. I love it.
Exactly. She was also joined by her two sons who didn't go with their father. So Maelgwyn, he has got a Y. It's Maelg.
Maelgwyn, is it? Yeah, Maelgwyn. I don't know.
It's Maelgwyn, but without the Y. So Maelgwn. Anyway, that lad.
Maelgwn.
Who was 18, and then Morgan, who was 16. So they're the two middle-aged sons. Now, when they reached the Normans, as they were coming up, they were coming through the hillside. They could see just how outnumbered they really were. So Gwenllian thought, okay, what we're going to have to do here is use the tactic of the lands again. So Gwenllian put her army on the steep slopes to the east of a place which is now called Maes Gwenllian, which means Gwenllian's field, which is in a place called Mynydd the Garreg. The hope was that they could hold the ground and inflict such heavy losses on the Normans that they would consider retreating and come back with a better plan, at which point the rest of the army would have arrived from the Welsh side. As the battle started...
Mynydd the Garreg, you say? That's where my grandmother's from.
No way. She might have a relation. I reckon, from reading about this...
She's descended of Gwenllian.
Well, I'd really want to visit this place. I think, I'd really like to visit it. We've done like a few things about visiting places. The reason why I've got more... Me and Jack both said before, we've invested in books to read about Wales, which is why this episode hopefully is a little bit more factually accurate. But this whole book has a road trip of all the battle sites in Wales, leading from like Caradog up until like England, dude, and even things about the Welsh language and stuff.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I reckon we do that, maybe. When we hit 10,000. Okay, anyway, as I was saying, what was I saying?
So they're in Mynydd the Garreg, and you said they were going to inflict enough damage on the Norman armies to hopefully let them retreat.
Yes, thank you. And now this battle has started, and as the Normans were going uphill, the Welsh inflicted heavy losses to this well-trained, well-armoured Normans. They were doing their classic javelins. They didn't have a huge amount of their longbows, because a lot of the proper soldiers had gone, and they were more used to doing their skirmishes from the woods, so they were more used to javelins, rocks and stuff like that, shorter bow and arrows. So we talked about this before, but the longbow was devastating to the Normans, but that comes in a little bit later. I'll cover that in a second. The Welsh relied instead on frantic, vicious fighting, so they'd smash through the lines. When the Normans were going uphill, they'd smash through their lines and quickly drag as many as they come back and bring them back behind their lines and fight and stab and stump and take them out that way. So they'd have some people holding the line, holding the Normans back and trying to grab as many as they could and cut them up and stuff. In a way that was kind of barbaric.
Well, sounds like bloody like fear tactics, almost like fucking out. Like, look what we'll do to you if you stand your ground. You're better off.
Yeah, exactly. So this went on for hours. Until then, the Normans managed to circle groups of the Welsh, separating them into smaller armies and into even smaller pockets. So they'd kind of circle areas of them, and they'd fight them till their last breath. And it was reported that hundreds of the Welsh were killed, including Maelgwyn, Gwenllian's oldest son. And then as the battle was drawing to a close, the Normans captured Gwenllian, and then they found her youngest son, and they killed him in front of Gwenllian. They then decided to decapitate Gwenllian as a final act of disrespect. However, this cruelty didn't do what they had hoped, so they were hoping this would subdue any other retaliation by showing that they chopped off this brave leader's head in front of all the remaining soldiers and civilians and stuff. However, it did the opposite effect. Instead, it galvanised the Welsh. More and more people would decide to call up arms after they heard the disrespect and the betrayal they'd done to like a warrior. Beforehand, warriors were never given kind of disrespectful death like this, but the Normans
it'd be like a sort of respect a powerful enemy type thing, wouldn't it?
Even with Caradog, who we did like weeks before, he was freed when he got to Rome because it's what they have respect for those who are fighting for their country. So anyway, like I said, this galvanised the Welsh massively. The Welsh of Gwent, led by Godworth ap Owain, ambushed and killed Richard Fitzgerald de Clare, the Norman lord who controlled Ceredigion. And then word reached Gwynedd of Gwenllian's death and the revolt in Gwent. So Gwenllian's brother Owain and Cadwaladr, they invaded Norman-controlled Ceredigion, taking Llanfihangel, Aberystwyth and Llanbaden. And then her husband, as you expect, was fucking furious. Like, imagine a man so madly in love and his wife's killed. So he leads the charge in all of this, and he takes other armies with him, and now they begin this historic period of winning victory after victory. And furthermore, there became a common war cry called Dial Achos Gwenllian, in English, which means revenge for Gwenllian. And this didn't just become a war cry for months past the event, but it became a war cry for centuries, and it became a symbolic Welsh resistance war cry. She symbolised what it meant to revolt and defend Wales.
Sounds like a Boudica reborn.
Yeah, well, yeah. She's often described as the Welsh Joan of Arc, but I don't know anything about Joan of Arc. Oh, yeah, so.
That's good. Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but let's just say, yeah, Welsh Joan of Arc. No, well, actually, no. Joan of Arc was the French Gwenllian, mate. That's what I say.
Oh, exactly. And another thing to add, loads of the soldiers in her army at this time were, because it was again around Christmassy time, wintry time, it was hard for other people to get to her in time. So the bulk of her army were like farmers, shepherds and stuff. And they were mostly armed with the most simple weapons, and they had barely any armour, where the Normans had all chainmail, full training.
Like you said, a lot of the army was made up of essentially civilians from villages on the way up that just felt the need to fight for the cause or whatever. That sounds, she's one absolute babe, isn't she? Absolute babe of battle.
There was also one thing which I couldn't find much collaboration for. The reason why she just had to fight was not only because they were attacking her land, but she had one Welsh chieftain called Griffith ap Llywelyn, and apparently he betrayed her and her location. So she had to take action to kind of show that she was still in charge, and she was in a forest waiting. So she had her army waiting in the forest, looking at Kidwelly Castle where the Normans were. But this fucking chieftain betrayed her, so she had to come out of the forest and fight head on, which is not what she wanted to do apparently. But then I found two examples. One of her saying she wanted to show that someone's going to stand up for those in Wales who've been attacked.
Yeah, well, that would fit into the classic Welsh situation of like being fucked over by ourselves a lot of the time. There's always someone betraying us, and like from within the ranks or whatever, like thinking they can get a leg up or whatever. That would fall into it. It makes sense considering a historical context.
And can I read the last bit about this? So there's a recollection of how the fight happened with Gwenllian at the end. So by the end, it's pretty much only her and her son who had any proper armour or anything on, so everyone around her was pretty much getting slaughtered at this point. And a knight broke Gwenllian's shield with his mace, breaking her arm, and then her son, Malgwyn, rushed to his mother, blocking with his sword the blow that was meant to kill her, but suffered massive injuries in the same. Finally, when they'd been captured, that prick Norman Maurice, he hated them. He hated them because he'd been made to look a fool, especially by a woman. He had their hands tied behind their back, and he replaced chivalry and custom. And because he had such an anger for revenge, they brought this log out to the site, and that's where he executed them. And I read a historian said it was against chivalry to kill a woman, and when you captured a king, you were supposed to ransom them, like what happened with Richard Lionheart and stuff like that. But they decided to take the log out of Kidwelly and behead her with an axe. It was just another layer upon insult, so it really, really caused huge uproar when they found out what happened.
There's a good death, isn't it? And then there's throwing an insult to an opposing to an enemy sort of thing. Yeah.
So that's Gwenllian. I didn't know anything really about her. I knew her name, but
I know we're accomplishing the mission of this pod by educating those on things that are not talked about, because you think that would be a story you'd especially for me and you going to a Welsh school that we'd have heard in Hanes, history. But that's mad, because that's such a good that's a Braveheart-esque tale.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And no one bloody knows about it.
There are loads of cool animations and short videos online of her, quite cartoony looking stuff in some periods. But she's, I think she's one of my favourite people I've read about in a while. I really liked her, and it goes on what happens next, like the Battle of Creek Mawr follows this battle, and that's the one where we,
that makes sense, because that is like such a
like,
a passionate one for the Welsh as well,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, in that it's a real outnumbered thing, but the sort of tenacity.
well,
The
it's
Welsh
the one
army
where.
in that one is a
But do
big
you remember
time.
the forces are huge? It's like 8,000. You know, compared to what we normally talk about, we usually say like there's 1,000 soldiers. This year was like 8,000 Welsh people against several thousand Normans. It was like a proper.
Oh yeah,
swelling
you
of an
can like
army.
imagine that's obviously swelled the passion for resisting the Normans.
So,
up,
and
yeah.
that happened a couple of
Makes
not
sense.
too long after, months if not weeks after the battle, after she was killed. So
There we are. If you're tuning in late to the pod, go back and have a look at the Krieg Mawr one.
that's a funny episode as well, because I came over to yours when you were really hungover. I liked that episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely
I've got absolutely no time for for the jokes, if I recall.
You were short shrift, but we no, I think remember because you said you were really tired and grumpy, and then I turned up with beers and you looked really excited. So
You did perk me up. To be fair, I think it's that's oh yeah, I know exactly which one you're on about now. I won't spoil it, so go have a listen if you haven't listened already.
all right, just to say diolch am gwrando, thanks for listening. If you could drop us a 5-star and leave us a review. Annoyingly, we can only get the reviews on Apple Podcasts, I think. Well, no, maybe that's not true. You just don't leave written reviews on Spotify. So anywhere else you get your podcast, if you could leave us a review, we'd love it, and we'll read it out. Drop us a message. We've had some good messages on Instagram, on Tales for Wales podcast, and on Twitter recently, suggesting new episodes. So we're definitely going to follow some of them up.
Yeah,
they're really
we're
helpful
loving
for us.
we're loving the interaction on Instagram recently. We've had a lot of little comments of me, and we're buzzing
really helpful
about
stuff. Yeah, so we do appreciate it. Ta-ra, see you later. F off, you little
Yeah,
nerds.
ta-ra, diolch, ta-ra, ta-ra, ta-ra.